You might be struggling with anxiety without actually knowing it. And I say you might not know it because when we think about someone who struggles with anxiety, often we have this picture in our head of someone who is kind of jittery and nervous and maybe, is hesitant in how they speak, or maybe they're kind of timid and held back, or it's someone that that has a tough time leaving their house, and you don't see them very often because they get really anxious when they leave their house. And so it's kind of clear that this person is struggling with anxiety. But you don't show up like that. Maybe you show up kind of seeming pretty confident, pretty grounded, pretty on top of things, right? People on the outside would think that you are someone who, is doing fine. And they wouldn't even know that there was anything else going on. But inside, it's a totally different story. Inside does not match the outside. And on the inside, you often feel really stressed, really overwhelmed, really worried about things. Maybe you can't turn your brain off. And so if that does describe you to a certain extent or even fully, then you might be struggling with high functioning anxiety. And this is something exactly what it sounds like, is that you're experiencing all of the internal experience of anxiety, but on the outside, you appear to be fine. And maybe you're even showing up in life, doing everything that you need to do, staying on top of things, participating, maybe even you're really successful and have a lot of great things in your life going on. But on the inside is a different story. So today we're going to talk about high functioning anxiety and how to know if this is something that you struggle with. Because sometimes when we understand what's going on, it takes away a lot of the shame and judgment. Instead of being like, oh, I'm such a mess, what's wrong with me? Being like, oh, I'm struggling with anxiety. And oh, there are things that we can do to manage that and to even overcome a lot of the biggest struggles that people have with anxiety. So that is good news. Stay tuned. I think if this is kind of describing you right now, that you are going to get a lot out of this video. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back again, always good to have you here. Oh, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, the button's about right down there. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my incredible membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking what you are learning here to a deeper level, a much deeper level, and learning a step-by-step process to change your brain, to change how you think and feel and show up in your life every day. You can get more information about that in the description below. I help heart-centered humans break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. So let's get right into this. Let's talk about high-functioning anxiety. And I want to give you first a bit of a litmus test that's going to help you get more clear about whether or not you do in fact struggle with high-functioning anxiety. And that is to just take a second now and check in with yourself. And ask yourself, do you often feel stressed and overwhelmed and have a really busy mind that you can't turn it off? Maybe you often physiologically feel kind of this sort of nervous kind of flipping feeling in your stomach, or like a tense feeling in your chest, or even just like kind of a hot, tense feeling in your head. And all this is going on the inside. But if you were to say to someone, I really struggle with anxiety, they would be shocked. They would be surprised. They would be like, no, you don't. Then that is a pretty good sign that there is high functioning anxiety going on. Everything appears good or relatively good on the outside, but what you experience on the inside is not consistent with that. You don't show it on the outside. So that's a pretty good kind of indication that there is some high functioning anxiety going on. But I want to talk now about 9 or 10, I think I have 9 or 10 other key things to look out for that would also suggest that there's high functioning anxiety going on. And like I said, the reason why we want to identify this is so that we understand what's going on, and then we can get the proper help and support to be able to work through this, get tools to manage it, and even overcome a lot of it. That's the thing with anxiety, is there's a lot of our anxiety that we can not only just manage the symptoms when they come up, but we can do work to prevent them from coming up either as often or as intensely, or both. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that at the end as well. So the first sign that you might be struggling with high functioning anxiety is that you have a really big fear of failure. Now, the truth is no human being actually likes to fail, but where it kind of crosses over from not wanting to fail versus having this really intense fear of failure is that because your fear of failure is so strong, you might avoid doing things quite often where you're not sure what the outcome's going to be, where you're not sure if you're going to be able to be good enough, or you have what it takes, or you're skilled enough if it's in some kind of like sport or activity, where you don't want to show up and not be great at it, not be guaranteed to be great at it, so you're going to end up avoiding it. Or your fear of failure is so intense that then when there are things that you can't avoid or get out of, you spend an intense amount of time planning and preparing and practicing and getting ready, and often feel really stressed and anxious during that whole process because you're so stressed and anxious about it not being perfect or amazing or great that you put tons and tons into it, but then feel kind of stressed and anxious the whole time. You're putting a lot of work into it because, like I said, you want the outcome to be great. So it just becomes from, onset to completion, onset of preparation to completion, a lot of stress and anxiety. The next sign that there might be some high functioning anxiety going on is, like I mentioned a minute ago, you have racing thoughts and a really busy mind and can't often turn your thoughts off. And you notice yourself thinking about things a lot. But people wouldn't really know that you have this busy mind because, again, you appear calm on the surface. And it's like that analogy of a duck swimming through the water, where on the surface of the water, on a still, crystal clear lake, the duck appears as though it's like gliding effortlessly across the water. But right under that surface, his little what feet? I guess they're just called feet, duck feet. These little duck feet are like paddling away like crazy. But no one would really know it on the surface. So you have this whole internal world that's going on that people on the outside, on the surface, wouldn't really even know. Which brings us to the next sign. And this happens when we have a really busy mind, is that you often find yourself tuning out or gapping out. So things will be happening around you, and then you'll be in a group of people, or with your family or with some friends, and all of a sudden someone will start calling your name, like, Julia, well, what do you think about that? And then you're like, what is even happening? Someone was talking to me this whole time, because you're so caught up in your own thoughts. And those thoughts could be about anything. It could be about what's happening where you're at right now, at the gathering that you're at, thinking about, if it's at a social gathering, thinking about, what are people thinking about me? What did I just say a few minutes ago, and how was that received? Or, I don't really know as many people here as I thought I would. So, what am I going to do? And how do I get out of here? Or whatever that is. Or you're thinking about, the grocery list that you need to go and, get some groceries later that night or the next day. Or you're thinking about some kind of work project. Or you're thinking about making sure that you reply to the text messages that you haven't replied to for a few hours, because you don't want someone to get upset and think that you don't like them because you didn't reply to them right away. Like, whatever that is, there's things going through your mind that are taking you away quite consistently from the present moment. Now, this is normal. Most of us, sometimes get caught up in thoughts, especially if we have something that we're anticipating, something that's a bigger deal in our lives, something that we might be a little bit nervous about or worried about. Then, normal to be preoccupied with some thoughts sometimes, but you notice that happening a lot, where you notice yourself tuning out a lot because you've got so much going on in your mind, and you end up missing out a lot on being in the present moment. and even just connected to what's happening around you. The next sign that there might be some high functioning anxiety is that, like we were just talking about, you overthink a lot. You get really stuck in your thoughts. You think about anything and everything. Maybe if it's at a social gathering or after a social gathering, you think about what you said. You think about what they said. You think about what you did. You think about what they did. You think about what you need to do. You think about what will happen if you don't do that. This can be in the moment. This can be after the fact. This can be any time where your brain is busy thinking about all of these things and really gets overwhelmed and preoccupied with thinking all of these things. And then you notice yourself it's not just you're thinking about it, but you notice yourself getting ramped up, stressed out, worried, and anxious because of all of these thoughts that are going through your head. The next sign that there may be some high functioning anxiety going on is that you are someone who is really productive. You are good at getting things done, making things happen, staying on top of things, being the go-to person, but you often, as a result, feel burnt out. You might even feel resentful because of all the expectations, all of the things that you are expected to do, all the people that want something from you, maybe even the expectations that you put on yourself for things to be A+ grade all the time. Maybe you feel trapped by expectations of others or even expectations of yourself, and you feel exhausted quite often. So on the surface, you appear to be successful and productive and on top of it all, but on the inside, there's a real struggle going on. The next sign that there might be some high functioning anxiety happening is you put a lot of effort into making yourself and things in your environment seem really together. So again, wanting to appear like everything is fine on the outside, but on the inside, it's a different story. And we can talk about, why this happens. Often when we feel out of control on the inside, we want to have some sense of control. And because we don't know how to kind of manage what's going on the inside, we're like, I need some control somewhere. So I'm going to control my environment, or I'm going to control my appearance. And I'm going to make myself, feel better by having things perfectly in place and perfectly put together on the outside, because then maybe that will help me feel like less of a mess on the inside. Maybe that will give me some sort of sense of control on the inside if I can control things on the outside. And maybe even the thought of going out in public not being perfectly put together, or having someone come over to your house when your house, someone just stopping by when your house isn't in tip-top shape, might bring up a lot of anxiety. Maybe you might even avoid going out if you feel like you're not perfectly put together, come up with some kind of excuse why you need to bail or need to cancel. Or cancel people coming over to your house, or, not let people into your house if it's not perfectly put together. Because again, there's this needing to control things on the outside to get hopefully, there's this hope for this, some kind of control when things are feeling really out of control on the inside. The next sign of high functioning anxiety is that you really struggle with last minute changes and really don't like spontaneity. Because likely in your mind, you're like, I need to know how things are going. I need to know what's coming, because again, that gives me some sort of sense of control when I'm feeling out of control. And I need to control things in my environment. I need to know what's happening, when it's happening, where it's happening, and who's going to be there. And if any of that changes without giving me a chance to wrap my mind around it, then it all goes into disarray, and I feel even, kind of knocked off my feet. And I don't know what to do. My brain just sort of explodes and goes into overload. Like, what am I going to do? This is different. It can be even something as simple as someone changing the restaurant that you're going to go to for dinner that night, where you had this idea, this is where we're going for tacos. And now you tell me that we're going for sushi. I cannot handle this. And I say it kind of laughing, but it can really feel like that. I used to struggle with this a lot. I used to struggle a lot with high functioning anxiety, which is why, I get it. And why, if you're like, wow, how does she know all this stuff so well? I feel like she's speaking right to me. And it's just because a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is things that I struggled with. And the rest, I've worked with people that have struggled with and heard firsthand about what's going on with them. And so, just sharing that so that you know that you're not alone. This isn't something that just, there's something wrong with you and that's why you're struggling with this. This is extremely common. And you might, the reason why you might feel isolated with it is because, again, you don't see it. We don't see high functioning anxiety because people appear fine on the outside. And so we don't realize that this is what's happening. And so we start to feel alone, like I'm the one who struggles with this, even though other people probably wouldn't even know that you are struggling with it. So struggling with last minute changes and really feeling put off by that, maybe even getting anxious when even little things change at the last minute. The next sign that you might be struggling with high functioning anxiety is that you overcommit a lot. And you do it, because you don't want to let people down. Like, it's coming from a good place. You want to be there for people. You want to show up. You want to be supportive. You want to help out, but you often end up getting overwhelmed because you overcommit. And then either dread everything, right? You're like, oh my gosh, look at my week. I just need to get through this week. I've got so much packed in here. Or you end up just getting so overwhelmed that you back out of a lot of things at the last minute and then feel terrible. You feel like a bad person, like you're letting people down and being flaky. And, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If I keep all of these commitments, I'm going to feel stressed and overwhelmed. And if I back out of them, then I'm going to feel guilty and bad. And so overcommitting, it often comes from this place of wanting to do the right thing. But it's not actually being responsible and aware of where our limits are. Desires might not be matching our actual capacity. And so if you're someone who often looks at your week and is like, I have so much going on, how am I going to get through the week? Then chances are there's some high functioning anxiety going there, because there is this overcommitting, because you think that you have to be all these things to all these people and, fulfill everybody else's expectations, and often even fulfill your own expectations of what you think you should be able to do. The next sign of high functioning anxiety is similar to this overcommitting, is you never think you're doing enough and often find yourself then taking on more. Not even necessarily because you want to, but you think that you need to in order to prove your worth, in order to prove that you're good enough. Because on the inside, you don't actually believe it. And so you keep taking on more, committing to more, agreeing to more, signing up for more. And then again, often feel really overwhelmed, really anxious, really stressed out, burnt out, maybe even some resentment in there that, oh my gosh, why do I have to do all of this stuff? And then the next sign, this is a pretty obvious one that most people with any kind of anxiety often struggle with, is that because you can't turn your brain off, you also can't turn your brain off at night and be able to fall asleep. Or maybe it's even that throughout your day, you're pretty okay. You're like, as long as I just kind of keep going and keep moving and keep getting things done and staying on top of things, then I'm all right? And you might even feel like, okay, like we're doing it. It's okay. I got this. And then at night, your head hits the pillow, right? You go from like pushing hard all day, like going at like 100 miles an hour all day. And then all of a sudden your head hits the pillow and you go from like 100 to 0 in the snap of a finger, right? By like going and then hitting the pillow. But then your brain is like, I'm not done going yet. Or even maybe your brain is like, now I have some time to get going, because you've been busy all day. You've been keeping me busy all day. You've been, doing things to distract me all day. And now I actually have time to go into that lovely overthinking. And so now I'm not going to let you sleep. I'm just going to start overthinking about everything. What happened today? What's happening tomorrow? What might happen next week? What should have happened 5 years ago? Whatever that is. So having a really hard time turning off your brain. Maybe it's during the day. Unfortunately, it's also probably, it's either, or it's going to be almost guaranteed it's going to be at night, but it might also be during the day. But yeah, probably definitely at night. So having a really hard time sleeping. And then this puts in the whole other part of it. When we're not sleeping well, then we have a harder time managing our minds and emotions. So the cycle continues. Often sleep deprivation is what can really compound anxiety. And then the more anxious we feel, the less able we are to get a good sleep, and the cycle continues, and it's just not fair. And it's kind of just turns into this big mess that at some point needs some intervention. One thing that will help with being able to turn your brain off at night is a 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise that I have. The link to that is in the description below. And I've had people email me and tell me that they listen to this one every day, and they listen to the exact same one every day for months, if not years, because they really like this one, and because it's just that consistency and predictability of it and the familiarity of it that gives their brain something to land on and to quiet it. And so you can grab it as well. It's free in the description below. And that's going to help you start to break some of that cycle. You can listen to it in the morning to start your day, to calm your mind at the beginning of the day. You can listen to it at night when you're going to sleep to be able to just calm your mind. So you can grab that below. Also, taking this work deeper and learning how to shift our brains from any kind of anxious brain to a more calm and grounded and present brain is what you learn how to do in the Shift Society. We're taking this work deeper, learning a step-by-step process to be able to do this, to practice and to do this, and to actually rewire your brain into a more common ground. I'm not going to say that you're never going to feel anxious again, because anxiety, like any emotion, is just a normal human emotion, and there's a lot of functionality to it, right? We need anxiety, like we need every emotion, to a certain extent. It's just when it tips over that place of being helpful to being debilitating, even if it's just with high functioning anxiety, it's debilitating on the inside, but may not appear to be debilitating on the outside. That's what we're doing in the Shift Society. Get more information about that in the description below. You can get on the wait list so that you're the first to know when we open up registration. Let me know. Is this making things more clear? Are you like, oh, this makes so much more sense to me now. Now I understand what's going on, and I don't have to judge myself so much about it because there's something actually going on here that's not just about me failing as a human being in some way. Let me know in the description below. Always good to be here with you. If you haven't already, if you got something out of the video, if you could like the video, if you think someone else in your life would benefit from this, share it out with them, and do let me know if you share it so I can thank you, because that means a lot to me. And yeah, subscribe to the channel, and I guess turn on notifications. Someone was telling me that they don't know when a new video comes out unless they actually turn on the notifications, and then it does alert them to that. So you can do that as well. Always good to be with you. Until next time, take good care.